Did you know that the president of South Africa earns more money than the chancellor of Germany?
I didn't know that.
The South African civil service is the highest paid in the world as a percentage of GDP. A few years ago, the South African government invited the International Monetary Fund to come and study the salaries of the public service. And they concluded that the public service in South Africa earns 16% of GDP. Similar countries to us at the level of development, like Chile in South America, Thailand in Asia, is only 6% of GDP goes to public service salaries.
Wow, that's quite staggering.
So it's a huge amount of money that is going to civil service pay.
So everything we produce as a country in a year, 16% of that must go back to
the salaries of the public service.
And then we want to increase tax.
Yes,
to pay for that.
To all that.
In part.
So what we should be doing is to say, take that, to cut the civil service pay back to similar countries, and take that 10% that we save and put it into investment, into building infrastructure, into building new universities and so on and so forth. That today, our investment as a percentage of GDP is only 15%. If we took that 10% and added, we'll go up to 25%, which will put us where we were when we were building the stadiums in the beginning of 2000.
Yeah, the good old days.
Exactly. That's what it would do for us. So the first obstacle we're sitting with in South Africa is the overpaid public service. But the public service is part of the middle class that controls political power. And the ministers, by the way, are included in this pay. Did you know that the president of South Africa earns more money than the chancellor of Germany?
I didn't know that.
South African economy is a fraction of the size of the German economy. But our president earns more money than the chancellor of Germany.
Not that he needs a lot more money.
Yes, he has other ways of earning. But he's paid. So this is an illustration of how the middle class parties are using their power to enrich themselves through taxing the rest of the economy. And that is what is driving our stagnation. Now, if you went to the government of national unity and said, take off 20% of GDP from the salaries, they will all refuse. Because all of them, whether they're DA or ANC, are being paid these phenomenal salaries. The town clerk in Cape Town is earning the same salary as the town clerk in Johannesburg, and these are hugely inflated salaries. The mayor of the DA, the mayor of the ANC, the mayor, who else is there? Got a mayor. They are all being paid this phenomenal salary. So to come back to your question, what should we do to kickstart the South African economy to get it to where it was in 2005? When it was like starting to pick up.
Absolutely.
We have to cut back on this overspending on the salaries of the public service. Then that gives us a foundation on which to start building. Because according to the National Development Plan, we should be at 30% of GDP going to investment instead of consumption, which is what these huge salaries do. So that is the short answer to you. Now, who is going to do it? As long as the middle class control the political power, they will never allow you to do it. Unless you get a Deng Xiaoping who reforms, which we are not getting.
It is our group that publicized the CR17 funders, which has now been sealed by the courts, but we published it first. And that was important because it was important to show who had funded the president to become the president. the first time in the history of the country, of the ANC, a president had raised several billion to be able to become the president of a political party. And he was funded by established businesses such as HCI's Johnny Copeland, Maria Ramos of Absa Bank. He is funded by the Ruperts indirectly through a third party in London, the Oppenheimers and the various family members, and a whole host of other establishment, and the banks in particular funded him. Now, that's okay as long as that information is public. And unfortunately, our media house, not me, our editors and journalists, were brave enough. Well, firstly, they were able to find the information. And secondly, when they found the information, they were able to publish it. Now, the COVID time produced terrible devastation, loss of lives. Healthcare workers in this country, nurses, doctors, other healthcare professionals, hospital workers, sacrificed so much to save patients' lives. And government was supposed to buy them protective equipment, PPEs, so they can be safeguarded from the COVID virus at the time. Instead, what had happened, almost 30 billion, according to the SIU, I think it's at 17, and then an additional 13 billion, was in fact stolen by various parties, and they took the money, overcharged the state, when, we could have had so much more equipment and hospital care for the poorest and for the health workers.
A government of the people, by the people, and for the people? Does it continue to be so? Even if you stand no chance of winning the elections unless you're connected to the financially well-resourced. And if they fund you to the point where you succeed and win and become a government, are you not captured in advance? So we need to really think deep about how capture happens. There's no free lunch, and never for the millions. You may get free lunch maybe for 1,000 rand. But once I begin to give you 1 million rand, 3 million, 5, 50, 100, whether I set you up in business or in government, there will be payback time. Why should I make you a multi-millionaire? Why? Why do I prefer you over others? Why? It's an investment. And be careful about those who are prepared to do everything, even outside of the book, to ascend to a leadership position. It's never those they claim to seek to represent that they really seek to represent. It is their stomachs and their insatiable appetite for power and money that they seek to satisfy. If only we were not to stay in a place where we always position ourselves for praise and favorable media coverage.
I wish the dead could rise. I wish the dead could rise and see for themselves what their sacrifice has become. I wish Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Wilton Mkwai, Elias Mutwaledi, Raymond Mhlaba, Governor Mbeki, Andrew Mlange, and Ahmad Katrada could rise and see what their sacrifice has become. I wish Christiani, Joe Kabi, Johnny Makatini, Oscar Mpete, Achi Gumete, Kenny Ndlovu, Lalo Chiba could rise and see what their sacrifice has become. Dorata Amara, Lillian Ngoi, Nomzamo Matikizela Mandela, Charlotte Maxeke could rise and see what their sacrifice has become. I wish victims of apartheid era crimes, atrocities, massacres, martyrs could rise and see for themselves what their sacrifice has become. I wish Chief Albert Lutuli, Chief Bambata Kamanzinza Zodi, Chief Makoma, Chief Makado, Chief Ngungunyane, Kgoshi Mampuru, Kgoshi Sekhukhune could rise. I wish Unkgopotse Tiro. Mapetla Mohapi, Stephen Bantu Biko could rise and see for themselves what their sacrifice has become. Bishop Trevor Huddleston, Dr. Beason Odi, Reverend Mcebisi Kundu, Ruth first blown to death by a letter bomb, Griffiths Mtlenge stabbed to death 52 times by Flak Plus operatives, Victoria Mtlenge executed, Dr. Fabian and Florence Ribeiro assassinated. I wish the dead could rise and see for themselves what their sacrifice has become. I wish Moses Mabhida, Eric Wala, JP Max, Moses Kotani could rise and see for themselves what their sacrifice has become. Begim Langeni, Sicelo Dlomo, blown by parcel bombs, Peter Nchabeling, Dr. Naupot Nchuncha, Medat in detention, Sipium Timkulu, Okosa Silida, poisoned to death, Stanza Bopape, Robert Sobukwe, poisoned to death, Philip Hosana, Jaftama Semula, Sabelo Pama, Zephaniah Tuping, the line of Azania, Izweletu. The Freedom Charter was compromised at Kodesa. The white monopoly capital, the enemy of Freedom Charter. Impa ikakapeli, umhlaba ukakabuyi, sidinga abahola banomgogodlo. Rightful land owners of this land have become subtenants. The land was there long before the arrival of foreigners in Africa. The absence of war does not mean peace. Lest we forget, cross-border raids were executed with impunity. Matola massacre of 1981, Maseru massacre. Lest we forget, Sharpeville massacre, Bisho massacre, Boipatong massacre, Puluwak massacre, Soweto massacre, Alexandra massacre, Duncan village massacre, Utinage massacre, Langa massacre, 72 deaths in detention. Victims of
typifying white civilians in the manner in which you did carte blanche, you would have violated international law.
We did not attack white civilians, but we destroyed European invaders, dispossessors, criminals. Because here you want to create a situation whereby our struggle is as recent as the PAC, and that's not the case. Our struggle against colonialism is as old as when the colonialists set their foot here and showed their sinister motives of dispossessing our forefathers of the land. And the whole struggle, the whole armed struggle, was the continuation of that. And actually we can draw the ancient wisdom from our forefathers. When Dingaan said to the Zulu warriors, Bulala Abathakathi, what did he mean? He meant that those dispossessors, Abathakathi, the Zulu warriors didn't ask among themselves who were the Abathakathis, who were the wizards, but they knew who the wizards were, and they were whites. And when Mushweshwe, King Mushweshwe of Basotho, in his wisdom, said, meaning that the whites will always have solidarity in oppressing the Africans. He drew that from experience, from the practical experience that was going on. And I dare say that the TRC is more concerned with the white life because even the questions are being filtered by a man who benefited hugely from the dispossession of our people. Because as far as I'm concerned, he who benefits by crime is guilty of that crime. And every white person in this country benefited from the crime of dispossession, benefited from the crime of colonialism, benefited from the crime of apartheid. But now you want to extract yourself from this crime. And it is so displeasing that the grandsons and daughters of Mushweshwe, of Shaka, of Sekhukhune are now bearing the burden of their abusers. Because you abused us, all in all. The TRC doesn't encourage people to speak truth. And I dare say this whole farce, this whole circus is doomed for failure. It's doomed for failure for obvious reasons. Because you cannot reconcile the dispossessed and the dispossessor. You cannot reconcile the oppressor and the oppressed. And the fact of the matter is that the white